It's a competition clinching shot. Whoa! How about that?
The LET Golf Podcast, the official podcast of the Ladies European Tour.
Right, hello and welcome back to the LET Golf Podcast with me, George Cooper, Nicola Kenton, and this week's guest, we've got Germany's Leonie Harm. Leo, how are you doing?
Hey, doing all right. How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for joining us. We're happy the season's back started. So yeah, thanks for coming to join us. How have you been?
It's been a bit of a roller coaster, not gonna lie. Golf definitely has a rough left hook or whatever you want to call it every now and then. So the season didn't go quite as smoothly as I anticipated, but we're trending, so there's room for hope.
Absolutely. And I know we had this big break and you were out in the States. Just sort of how would you recap your time out there?
The States is a little different. Obviously, you kind of, to each their own. Like, you kind of more on your own. It's less of a community. Like, I played some events on the Epson tour, which like was nice to bridge the gap that the LET had to just kind of stay competing. But I'm really happy to be back because just the tournaments are just organized so much nicer, and it's just good to see some familiar faces. I'm sure if I was like out on the Epson for longer, I would probably feel more at home there also, but it's just for now, it's just not my kind of cup of tea.
But where would you say your game's at the moment?
I'm not sure. If you find out, let me know, yeah? No, I had some health problems early in the season that were just really unexpected because I just had some allergic reaction to some prescribed like medicine, and then my body was just completely tossed off its rhythm. Because if you're just not feeling healthy and comfortable in your own skin, it's really hard to swing a golf club. So I really struggled. Like, I actually made a shank with my driver in Cape Town. That's never happened to me before. And I'm just like, wow, it's just hard to forget about that. Like, to stand on a tee box and not think about that. So I spend a lot of time trying to train my selective memory, get back to, like, give my body the time it needed to, like, fully get all that stuff out of its system. And I'm hoping problems are fixed as much as they ever can be, but I'm feeling better, like, hitting the ball now. It just, unfortunately, and I don't really know where this is coming from, if it's like from just switching too much between Bermuda and normal greens. I mean, normal, I guess normal is always in the eye of the beholder, but I'm just not making putts as much as I got comfortable with the last 2 years on tour, and that's a real deal breaker. It's just really hard to get a good score on the scorecard if you just don't make anything that's longer than 4 feet. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's relatable, but I'd rather struggle with putting than standing on a tee box and not knowing if like I'm gonna miss it 60 yards right or 80 yards left. So I think this is a better problem to have ish, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. But obviously, we saw you in Belgium, and you obviously had a good result, top 20. So just talk to us about that week and where the game's at now.
So Belgium was obviously a good like step in the right direction because I haven't played weekend golf in a minute, which is not a great thing in our line of work. You want to work on weekends, but the course really like suited my eyes because there was like no like tree lines or anything except like one hole, whatever. But like it's kind of a little bit linksy style wise, I would say. Just not no pot bunkers, but like just kind of you can hit it low and let it roll, and there's a bit of wind, and so it kind of takes you a little bit out of that, okay, you got to hit perfect golf shots and become a little more creative with what you can do with the golf ball, like shape it or like do whatever and react to whatever situation you got going on hand. And I really enjoy that type of golf. That's like my favorite because I do think golf is not science, it's art. So I felt really comfortable on the golf course. I felt comfortable being back in Europe after 16 weeks away. And so I mean, tournament was just really set up super nicely and everything. I don't know, just felt pretty good being back home-ish, like home, like away from home. I'm in Belgium. It's not that far from Germany. So it's actually closer to my home than the Germany event is to where I live, but that's just a side note. Yeah, so just a lot of things that put me back into my comfort zone, and I haven't been in that in a while.
Yeah, good to hear. I was going to say maybe that explains why it was such a good German showing.
Yeah.
Patricia obviously getting the win.
Oh wow, that was incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, what did you think? I know we saw you there on the 18th and you were as pleased as anyone.
Yeah, it was exciting to see because Patricia she's actually from my region in Germany, and she's not that different. Like she's a little bit older than me, but not significantly. So we kind of want to say grew up together, but we never met. Like our paths never crossed, even though we both played like junior golf around the same time in the same region. So it's just incredible for her to like in her rookie season clinch that first win. Like I'm so happy for her. That's so exciting. And I mean, she hits it miles. I mean, Kiara does too, but I feel like those two paired together were probably just like sending it. I was like playing ahead of them, and I'm not hitting it particularly far right now. And I just look back every now and then, I'm like, damn, it must be nice to have like a wedge into the screen. I have like a 7-iron, but I mean, so yeah, a really, really great hitter. And I've never actually played with her, so I can't attest to many other areas of her game, but I'm sure it must work pretty well because otherwise the score wouldn't have been there. So yeah, just exciting for German golf to have another tour winner after Olivia and Chiara won last year.
And you were just talking then about the fact that obviously your paths didn't cross when in the early stages of your golf, despite being in the same part of Germany. But we'll talk now about how you did get into golf. So what age were you when you started with this game that you love to hate to love?
That is such a good description. It's such a love-hate relationship. And everyone who claims they only love golf, they're a liar. Don't trust these people. They're lying. I have an older brother who's 4 years older than me, and so when he was like young, but like I wasn't born yet, my parents were like, "Damn, it would be so nice to have a sport that we could all do together as a family." So a few of my dad's colleagues played golf and really enjoyed it. So they were like, "Oh, let's pick up golf." So they tried it out, and they loved it, absolutely loved it. And my mom actually was like 7 or 8 months pregnant with me when she got her. I don't even know what the English term is, but like her permission to play on the course, like her like handicap, I guess, or whatever. So I guess I played golf before I was even born. Yeah, so I was just outvoted. Like I never really was asked whether or not I wanted. It's not like I was violently forced or anything, but I was always just tagging along with them, which was in my early years not ideal because there wasn't just too many young girls in the club that I started playing golf at. So I was really bored. So I started selling golf balls on the 13th tee. Like it was a big lake on the 12th, and so I picked the balls out of the lake and sold them on the 13th tee. And it was a pretty good business. Like it was selling like 50 cents a ball or something. It was a really new ball. I got it for like €1. I was making big bank back then. And so then my dad, who I guess saw that I had some talent for golf or whatever, he was like, Leo, you know that if you don't tax your income, like you're gonna go to jail. That's fraud. Because my dad is a tax counselor, you probably have to add that. So it was like his way of making me scared to do it, to get caught or whatever. And so I started practicing golf again when I was on the golf course. I wonder where I would be now if I just made that business grow larger and larger. I don't know. But yeah, so I was very tall already, very young. So by the time I was like 11 or 12 years old, I've already been this height. So I just hit the ball really far, really early in my life. I don't hit it far anymore. That's a bit devastating, but it is what it is. So in all these junior categories, I used to just do really well because of my distance advantage that I had. And it's just nice to be good at something. It's just nice to win or succeed or whatever your goals are. Yeah, so that became kind of an addiction to golf in a way, like, okay, because you're never gonna be able to get your full potential out of it. Like, you're just always more, like, you can always work on stuff, you can always get better, you can always play better. There's not a single round of golf you'll ever play where you're like, oh, I don't know how to save a shot now. Like, you'll always be able to squeeze out more, even in your best form, and that becomes really addicting because you wanna get the best you could do, right? Like, how rewarding is it if you even just have like one really, really solid round? You're like, damn, like, want more of that.
And what are some of your earliest memories? Do you remember like the first competition you ever took part in?
Ooh, yes, I do remember that. It was like just this like open junior tournament, I think. It was like open from like there's just different. It was a golf club that I only played on once. Like I don't even remember the name of the club, but there was
Mhm.
this one guy that back in the days. I really don't know how old he was back then. Must be like 12 or 11 or 12, something like that. And he was really, really good for his like age class as a guy. So he won the gross rankings like in that tournament, the
Yeah.
gross competition. And so the announcer said, oh, he gets like more gross points than we do net points. And I was like, damn, how's that even possible? But now I'm like, yeah, duh, you just shoot under par. That's pretty easy, like duh. But back then I was like so like flabbergasted by how this like 11 or 12-year-old kid like did that. And then fun fact, so he was actually from Golf Club St. Leon Road, which was like this really big golf club back then. There's this massive name at the time. I've never been there. And then fast forward in time, he actually became teammates with my brother because we did transfer to the Golf Club St. Leon Road, which is actually also where I'm sitting right now. Living and being based out of, and they definitely had a huge part in developing me as a junior golfer. And even now it's still my home base, and I just love being here in the summer more than in the winter, because it does get a little depressing because of the German weather being just super nasty in the winter months. So I do prefer to spend it somewhere sunnier, but besides that, I just absolutely love everything they do to support junior golfers in Germany.
I was going to ask about the junior golf scene in Germany, knowing that you moved to that club. Yeah, what were the decisions that you kind of made when you were like, okay, we're going to go here?
That's a great question. So my brother had a lot of potential as a junior golfer, but we always felt like in the club we started playing that he just wasn't taken all that seriously, and he wasn't supported quite as much as he could have because we were never in any state, federation, whatever. So we just wanted to see, kind of expand our horizon, like, okay, what are the options? Because my parents were like, well, we at least want our daughter to get the best possible support system. And we started taking some lessons with a coach at Golf Club St. Leon Road. And this was 15 years ago, and he's still my coach to this day. That was like a match made in heaven, like on like a swing level. Like he just understood my golf swing and never changed it significantly. Like if I look at a swing video for me when I was 10, it's probably still about the same as it is now. Like he just used my fundamentals and like try to optimize them. And that's what I really enjoyed about him, because I've never had like health issues or whatever due to my golf swing, which I think is a big bonus for like a good swing coach. A lot of them just try to squeeze you into that box of, okay, that's what a perfect golf swing is supposed to look like, but you're not supposed to swing a perfect swing. You're supposed to swing your swing. Yeah, so I started taking lessons with him, and he was like, hey, like, listen, we have this under 14 team. And Caroline was actually the best player at the time, under 14 in that club, Caroline Lumpert. So she was like one of those like idols I would like look up to. I was like, damn, I could be on a team with her. Like, how cool would that be? But actually, as I then committed to the club to be on a team with Caroline, to have like that idol be part, like in my team, she was promoted to the under 18 team early. I'm like, you guys lied to me. But I got over it. Like, I did meet Caroline after all. It was fine. Well, she was just that good that she would, be promoted to the bigger league. Yeah, so
Funny, you're prompting all our questions here, Leo. You mentioned Caroline there as someone you kind of looked up to. What other heroes did you have, whether they were in golf or other sports when you were growing up?
to add on to the Caroline one, also Sophia Popov is also from my like now home club. She was definitely one of my big role models just in that branch of women's golf. Really, really cool person, really, really cool player. And then my older brother's always been a role model for me because he's just so smart and wise. And even at the youngest age, like he would just know the answers, or it feels like he knows the answers to everything. Like to this day, if I have a really important decision, I always call my brother, because I tend to make emotional decisions. But if it's an important decision, I don't want to just based on emotion. So I like explain my brother the situation, and he's like, okay, this would be the correct thing to do. It's like, okay, thanks. So that's definitely been a big rock in my system. And then my parents were obviously incredible. But I do like to look at other sports too, to like kind of see like great athletes, because at the end of the day, competitive sports is all about just performing when the pressure is the highest. And I don't know, like growing up, well, staying in golf, like definitely like Roy McIlroy, but if I had like a childhood other sports hero. This is embarrassing. But right now, if that counts for anything, I definitely admire like Lewis Hamilton being really, really great under pressure, and just that his mindset.
George has another section at the end where we can. But when you were doing golf and obviously moving to St. Leon, was it kind of always your goal to be a professional golfer, or was it what was your goal in life? What career did you want if you couldn't sell golf balls?
I never wanted to turn pro, like never once in my life. And everyone's like, "Oh yeah, when are you gonna turn pro?" I was like, "Never, just not gonna happen." I actually left the national team because I was like, "I'm not turning pro," and that was kind of a requirement to be on the national team to want to turn pro because it's like all for the Olympics or whatever. But then I realized that real life is really hard too, so I decided to chicken out a little bit and try that golf thing. I really wanted to go into research, like medical research, cancer to be precise. I don't know if it was like always like that, but by the time like you're kind of trying to pick your career path, you decide what you want to study. My mom was diagnosed with cancer, and before that, like her mom already passed of cancer, and then her mom already passed of cancer. So it's kind of just one of those, I mean, reoccurring problems, I guess, in our society anyway. But as a young child or like as a teenager, you just feel like that's a little unfair, having to face these problems. And my mom's type of cancer was very rare. And so there was not a lot of research in that precise type of cancer. Like it was breast cancer at first, but it was like a very aggressive and rare type. So the pharmaceutical like companies, they don't really invest much money into that research because we can't really sell that many drugs because there's just not that many people having it. And I felt like that was so unfair. Like, what the heck? It's my mom. Like, someone do something. And that kind of sparked that. Oh, I want to change the system. I'm gonna save the world. Whatever. Spoiler alert, it's not that easy. There's obviously reasons, like you have to invest funding where it has the biggest impact. And if you sure, it's all the business anyway. But yeah, I did actually move forward studying biochemistry and biophysics at the University of Houston, which was a really cool experience, being able to use a golf scholarship to essentially get it all paid and have that experience of playing collegiate golf while studying a degree I was really interested in. So that was really a cool phase of my life. And then they were like, "Yeah, like you should apply for jobs now." I was like, "No." I don't know how, and I don't want to. So I was like, you know what? I'll play Q school. I'll try playing golf. And yeah, and then so I graduated in December 2019 and then played Q school in January, which was really nice because the LAT usually did Q school in December, but that specific year in 2020, it was in January, it was postponed. So it worked perfectly. It was like kind of meant to be. Like, this is a sign. So I played, and I got kind of decent status. It wasn't like the best status I could have gotten, but it was like good enough to get into a handful of events. Little did we know that there was only a handful of events anyway. And then yeah, that's kind of how professional golf started for me.
So yeah, obviously we know that you did go into a lab during the time where we didn't have that many events to go forward. You did put on a lab coat, some goggles, do some bits and bobs in a science lab during COVID. Tell us about that. And as you say, a taste of the real world, but kind of made you go, okay, yeah, not ready for this yet.
Yeah, so the COVID pandemic obviously hit in, what was that, March, April of 2020. And there was just we just didn't know how long it was gonna take. So essentially it was just gonna be 2 weeks, right? It's still just been 2 weeks, and then once the 2 weeks passed, I was like, this seems like it's gonna take more than 2 weeks. And so I moved back in with my dad at home. Like, I love my dad, but I just wasn't in that home in a very long time. And I have not really, I think it just didn't feel like home anymore, especially like without my mom being in it and stuff. I was like, okay, I can't sit here like all day. This just can't be. Like, what useful stuff could I do? And I'm like, you know what? You got this biochemistry degree. They're doing a bunch of research right now. It's maybe helpful if you just offer your services. And so I applied for an internship just to be like a lab assistant in vaccine development. But I mean, it's not like I really did anything crazy inventive or whatever. I just ran a lot of tests and did a bunch of busy work, just trying to help where I can. And it was a cool experience. It really was. I felt very valued for just the little stuff I did. But it's quite nice to be your own boss, actually. Not having, and it's exhausting, like mentally too. Like you think golf's exhausting mentally, and it definitely is, but it's just also draining to work in a research lab, like even if you're just doing the busy work. And yeah, I don't know, I was like, you know what, I'm in my 20s. I kind of don't see my life going in that direction just yet. I'm not saying never, but I just enjoy the freedom of being a professional athlete. And pretty much my main job is to keep my body in like the healthiest physical and mental condition. So that definitely is quite nice to have that as your main job versus you're kind of sitting in a lab all day and then you have to take care of being healthy or whatever. I have a lot of respect for the people that do that. Like, shout out to everyone. Y'all are the real warriors. I'm not. I'm doing one thing at a time. I'm focusing on one thing. And that's, yeah, that's that.
And was it kind of helpful, the fact that you hadn't finished your degree like that long ago? Had you been doing stuff in the labs during your degree? I know it's a different kind of thing, but was it kind of easier to go into that environment because it wasn't too far away from what you had been doing?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely learn like different methods like on the go, as in every job. Like nobody really comes into a job and already knows everything. But like just the basic like lab procedures and stuff, and like how you're supposed to act in a lab, and like how to run tests and whatever, and like the general like principles of the thing was sure to have like good to have it in my fresher memory. But I'm not too concerned to like let some time grow over this, but I do probably have to get like go back and study some more to really make an impact in like when it comes to like being a researcher, like as in like me actually running the tests, like designing the experiments and stuff versus me just executing some data testing, whatever, and data collecting and sorting and all that. So yeah, I don't, but to be like, what was a good thing is to do it early in the sense of, okay, I know I did make the right choice for myself, that I actually do enjoy being a professional golfer more right now at this current time than I would have enjoyed going straight into that other job that I did kind of have lined up for me in a sense, like that was going to be my career. So it was just good to have that confirmation early on, because like you don't want to do stuff half-hearted ever in life, I think.
And then we're going to scroll back, how many years ago now? 10 years?
I just did the math because this is German boys and girls, right? And the first time I played the German boys and girls was 12 years ago. That's madness. I feel so old.
And you're younger than me.
Is she younger than you?
Yeah, she's younger than me. She's the same age as my sister. As I say, scroll back a little bit of time, and we'll go back to exactly pretty much a decade ago, when you were out running, doing your morning run at 5 a.m. Leo's spoken about this before with us on many an occasion, but we'll talk about it on the podcast now. So for those listeners who don't know, can you explain what happened 10 years ago?
So at the time I already transferred to the golf club St. Leon Road, but I still lived in Stuttgart, which is like an hour 15 away from each other. So it was just after school, there was just really no time. We would just immediately drive, whatever. Anyway, long story short, I would do my cardio before school. So I would run out in the mornings. So this one morning I crossed the street and this driver hit me. I don't remember it happening. Luckily, I think I never made it to my long-term memory. Yeah, like I was looking, apparently I was like, according to witnesses, I was looking both ways, but still like stepped on the street, and then the driver couldn't react because she like still had alcohol in her blood from previous night. So that definitely like killed all the reactions she could have had. And so it was kind of one of those wrong place, wrong time, wrong person, wrong whatever. But things went for the better, because so she hit me with like 70 kilometers an hour, which is like 45 miles an hour, and usually you're pretty dead after that. Um, that's kind of not a thing that you walk away from. But I fell in front of the feet of like military, like German military paramedic, like, or like she was in training, or I don't even like, she definitely was the correct person in the correct time in this, in this like in this incident. And she was incredible, like making sure my brain wouldn't shut off because it was bleeding out of both ears, so it definitely looked messy. And I mean, I'm gonna just go out on a limb here and speak for everybody. Like, if someone falls in front of your feet, bleeding out of both ears, like I wouldn't know what to do at all. Like, I did first aid classes, but I just wouldn't know how to react, and I probably would be in shock. But she did react so quickly and made sure the damage to my brain would be as little as possible. Minor hiccups here and there, no, just kidding. But anyway, essentially, I survived, spoiler alert, and yeah, even without major lasting injuries. So after like 7 weeks after that, I was back to playing golf and just kind of lived my life. 2013, which is the year that it happened, and was not my greatest season. Yeah, in the greater scheme of things, it definitely worked out quite all right. And yeah.
You said to me before that the first thing you said when you woke up.
Yeah, so when the actual paramedics put me into, like, they brought me to this hospital, and I was put in a coma. I don't remember the whole waking up phase because that's kind of like a lengthy process over like multiple days. But the first thing I do remember saying was like asking my dad if I'll be able to play in the German Girls, which was like back then my favorite tournament of the year. And they were like the first weekend of June, but this happened May 3rd, so like this would have been just a month. And my dad's like, see, let's have that conversation some other time. Like, he just didn't want to like immediately break my heart, you know what I mean? But I was like, I know, it was a bit ambitious. And I mean, the thing is, I did make it there like on crutches to like watch them play and support, and I was even there at like the opening ceremony just to like show some spirit and whatever. But yeah, that's kind of what it meant for me back then. It really was. I was really looking forward to that event in particular, but like just competing in junior golf was just a cool thing.
And in terms of obviously returning to golf course, so I know, as you said, 7 weeks later, you're kind of pretty much back to back on the golf course at least, and doing some kind of playing and competing, etc. But as you said, you didn't kind of have any long-lasting injuries from it. There wasn't a massive amount of kind of, retraining that you had to do. You had to do to an extent, but not considering the accident. You were very lucky with what you had.
I think the biggest thing, which sounds like a small thing, but so my petrous bone fractured, which fractured my ear canal, which imploded my right inner ear. So that whole balance system and everything, like, kind of got. I mean, I'm not saying I've ever been a very coordinated person, but that didn't help. And it's essentially like sooner or later your brain like adjusts to everything, I think. But I mean, yeah, that's definitely been a tricky one. But besides that, I mean, in the greater scheme of things, like, I could have very well have died, and I mean, so I think complaining about the balance being a little off would be very weird.
And what was that process like of getting back on the golf course? Obviously, well, the fact that when you wake up, the first thing you want to do is get back on the golf course, kind of indicates what kind of person you are.
Well, the thing is, I never felt any pain because I don't remember like the pain I must have felt when the accident actually happened, because it never made it into my memory, and then you don't feel anything when you're in a coma, or at least you don't remember it. And by the time I did wake up, I was probably really full of painkillers. There was never had any pain essentially. And then they gave me a bunch of painkillers at home to like take, and I just didn't because I was like, whatever. So by the time, because I had a surgery on my ankle, so I had this like orthopedic boot, and it looked like I would trip chewing gum or something. Like, I like looked nothing like I was just run over by a car. And then once that boot was off, I just went back to practicing, and everyone was like, Leo, what are you doing? What are you doing? You can't. I was like, but like I can't. Like, what's gonna happen? It's golf. It's not like I don't know, playing American football or anything. Like, what's gonna happen? It's not like my brain's gonna explode or so. And then so everyone was very skeptical, and I don't know. For me, immediately, like the first round I played, being back, I competed against my brother, which was a really serious competition because it's against your sibling. And I actually shot an even par, pretty cool. Like just your first round back, and it was like in good spirits. But every tournament then I played that year was like I would do like one or two really stupid holes, and I didn't do these stupid holes because I was injured. I did the stupid holes because I did something stupid on these holes, and everyone was like, "It's fine. You had your accident." Like, this has nothing to do with it. Let me be mad about this eight that I just made because I tried to do something, whatever. And yes, it took a while to connect the team around me with me again, in the sense of like, okay, what is my body actually capable of doing, and what is things that shouldn't be attempted to be done. I did, like, on an international stage, I only played essentially the British girls that year, and I had to withdraw because the wind and everything like just infected my ear that was imploded or whatever, and I had the biggest ear infection and like all this disgusting like soggy stuff with like worst pain. I had an ear surgery, and that got really messy. But in the greater scheme of things, my transition back to competitive golf was relatively smoothly. And then I would say, like, by the time 2014 rolled around, I was actually really on like my competitive high again, and made the most of my junior career.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I was looking up about your 2015 year in particular was amazing, and I was like, wait, that was only 2 years after the accident. Like, it was like, that's so impressive. But yeah, I know you had some highlights. You played obviously in the PING Junior Solheim Cup, and I was looking at some of the names in that. There was some, load of LET players playing in that. So just talk to us about that week in particular.
Yeah, the Junior Solheim Cup was awesome because it was not my home golf club, and obviously, so it was like my main goal to qualify for that. And I was on road, or like it was a realistic thing for me to do. And then my national team coach called me, who was vice captain. Sebastian Ruhl was like vice captain that year, and he's like, Leo, I just read the regulations, and you committed to go to college in August 2015, so you won't be eligible to play in the Junior Solheim Cup. I was like, what? You said what? And he's like, yeah, like, because even though you would be 17 by the time you leave, like, you wouldn't be considered a junior due to like USGA regulations being a collegiate player. And I'm like, okay, that's messed up. But luckily, my college coach was like super understanding, and his wife, Stacey Lewis, actually played on the American side in the professional team. So he was like, Leo, this is like the biggest thing because it's in your home golf club. No worries, just come a semester late, you'll be fine. So I decommitted for a semester. Like, I made that choice to have like an extra semester at home. But I wasn't even qualified for the Junior Solheim Cup yet, so that was a lot of pressure. But I did essentially, manage it, I guess. I won the German girls that year, which was one of the qualifying events for the tournament. Was basically my best shot because it was like on my home golf club, so it was really cool. And by that time, I would not, like, I knew, okay, like, I'll be on the team more likely than not. And so I was just really looking forward to that week, and I was so excited. And I mean, my club made it like the best experience, and they were amazing about it. And all the schools around had that day off with the single match, like the day of the single matches, they had that day off. And then like all the kids that have never been on a golf course like walked with me to like be spectators. I've never played with that many spectators like ever again. It felt like thousands of people. I don't even really know how many it was, but it was a lot. I played awful. Because I don't know. I think I put so much pressure on myself wanting to succeed. It was such a hassle to get there, and there was so many expectations, and I don't know. It was just, for whatever reason, I just didn't really do that well. Lost all my matches, and like we lost as Europe against the United States. But it didn't even really matter because it's more about the event, I guess, and being part of like growing junior like girls golf globally. And it's just an amazing opportunity to then like go on and watch the Solheim Cup, like the actual thing, even though that wasn't the desired outcome either. That was tragic. but like being part of that, meeting a lot of really cool people, and just, yeah, closing your junior career out like that is probably the best ending you can ask for.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than that, does it? And then you're off to the States. I mean, firstly, like, why did you pick Houston?
So there's a long story and there's a short story. The long story, I mean, like roughly, so by the time, like, I had my car accident just before my junior year in high school would have started. So my, like, that first signing period, it would have been like a thing for me. Like, I wasn't on the map for global golf. So all the like really, really traditionally great schools, they were like, we don't know about this one. So by the time I was actually looking into colleges, which was like a lot later than other people would have, there just wasn't a crazy amount of options left. But I did look at some, and Houston just felt the most like home for me, and it was the most of like what I wanted to do, because they had a brand new women's golf program at the time. And that's just really cool to kind of create your own legacy, like to help jumpstart a program, like take it on, like be a part of like growing something new. And then I like the idea of Houston being a big city, so kind of just, you're not isolated on a college campus, and it's not like everyone knows everyone kind of vibe. Like, you're more anonymous in a big city, which I liked. Weather is pretty good year round. Our coach is amazing. Like, he was really like a replacement parent for the time in college, and people underestimate that. Like, juniors, if anyone looking at colleges right now is listening to this, there's nothing more important than how well you get along with your coach. Because if that's not a vibe, your time there is going to be miserable. And then plus, because I would have been such a key part to that program, they also allowed me to study whatever I wanted. And I wanted that biochemistry degree more than I wanted to play competitive golf. So that was a huge factor for me, because if I would have gone to like a really elite like academic school in a sense, but also elite golf school, they would have been like, hey, you can do like a biochemistry degree and be on the golf team. That just doesn't work. But my coach really helped make it work for me. Like, he flew me into tournaments late. Was able to skip practices. Like, I didn't even have to qualify most of the time, because like I had class, like I just had a different class schedule than everyone else. And so that was all just really awesome. Anyway, go to Houston, everyone. Go Cougs.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask, like, how did you balance doing the two? But I mean, you just answered some of it. But it seems like it. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to start. But just how was it? Like, was it much of a challenge, or I know you just said you got some exemptions here and there, but just talk to us about the challenge of balancing golf and studying.
Yeah, you definitely have to be okay with your like time management. Like, you can't procrastinate on your assignments and do everything last minute or whatever. I do think your golf practice also becomes more efficient, because when I was a junior, I was like, oh, I'll be out here all day. Like, it doesn't matter. I can just waste 4 hours of my time doing something completely unnecessary. That's not really going to make me better. But now you like only have these 3 hours a day, and you have to do the best you can to like get something out of it, because otherwise, like, why show up at all, right? And that really makes you think, okay, what are the things that do make me better? And I think that has really helped me now in my professional career, because at the end of the day, it's all about efficiency. We, like, with as little effort as possible, trying to get the most out of it, I guess. And I guess if it was good for nothing else, at least we got that going.
And you said about, I mean, even at that point, you were still like, being a professional golfer perhaps wasn't the goal at that point. And I know then 2018, you win the British Ladies Amateur Championship. How much of a trigger point was that for then you going, okay, I'm going to be a professional golfer now? Or was it more going back to just, oh no, I don't want to be working? Like, surely that was like a big thing for you that was like, and all the benefits that went with that. I mean, playing in all the majors.
So the funniest thing, in full transparency, the guy I dated at the time, so he came to watch me play at the NCAA Nationals in Oklahoma State at that May, I think it was, May 2018. And at that time, I haven't really won an event in years. So anyway, he kind of gets a grasp of like what golf's really about, and professional golf, and how much money you can technically make with golf, right? I mean, on paper at least. And he's like, oh, you should really try and be a professional golfer. And I was like, no, I just really don't think I have it in me. And then, so he kept like trying to convince me to not like throw it away. And he was like, you know what, let's make a bet. Like how many events would you need to win in this next year for you to like feel convinced you should try golf? And I was like, I mean, let me say, if I win 4 events in the next year, like knowing I haven't won in like 3.5 years, anything, it's like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. Like this was just to like, keep him at bay. And then I started winning the German International Am, which I've won before in 2015, but just never since. And then my swing coach was like, oh, hey, I'm glad you remembered winning again. It's like, oh, yeah, right. And then so he's like, yeah, now just go win the British Am. I was like, haha, you funny. And then I won the British Am like the following week or like 2 weeks later, whatever. Like, oh, okay. And then I won like a few college events. So just to come, like, actually do my part on that bet, I did have to turn professional then. I guess it wasn't really my choice anymore. So yeah, no, I mean, I would have not, if I would have still hated it. But funny enough, because I was going to quit competitive golf in 2019, like after my college career was over, I wanted that last semester to like kind of be the best semester. And so we had this basketball player at our university who was just really, really good under pressure. Like he was this guy, you wanted to have the ball in his hands if the game was tied, like with 0 point nothing seconds left, right? Like he would get that foul at points or whatever, So I became friends-ish. We had like a little bit of a mutually like taking advantage of situation going on, to like have him kind of like teach me his ways to like how he excels under pressure. And that was also a big piece of me feeling more comfortable competing at like the highest level, because it just changed my perspective on it, because I used to dislike having the pressure on my shoulders playing for a team all the time, where it's like, okay, like everyone looks up to you, and if you play bad, like you're ruining everyone's day or week or whatever. Just kind of changing your perspective on that really helped me, being like, okay, no, maybe I do actually enjoy performing under pressure.
Absolutely. So the ex-boyfriend and the basketball player then basically were the were the 2 most important people to getting you into golf.
I mean, I guess if you want to say it like that, to help me make that decision, yeah.
For sure. And then what about the opportunities that afforded you winning it? I mean, you got to play obviously in the majors, you got to play in the Women's Open, US Open. Like, how fun a year was that?
So I played absolutely awful in both. It was quite crazy. So the British Open were really like that same summer, and we played in Lytham St. Anne's, and I played practice rounds there, and I was like, you know what? If like 2 rounds go really well for me, like I'll probably shoot about even out here, right? And I'm a good links golfer, like a decent links golfer at least. Like links golf is kind of my thing. I was like, yeah, I'll shoot an even. And the cut was at like even or 1 over or whatever. I mean, fact check that. But like, it was like mad good. And I'm like, damn, like I didn't even see myself like be in that league. And then my brother's like, yeah, Leo, but like you weren't in a good like form. And those are the best players in the world. Like, what did you expect? That you'll just trip into making a cut at a major? Like, what's? It's like, yeah, that was really cocky of me to believe that I would just out of nowhere. So a very humbling experience for sure. I mean, my decision was kind of already made at the time that I would want to not for the British Open, but before the US Open. But like, kind of was a bit of a humbling experience. Like, okay, no, but you do have to dive into a different level. Being an elite amateur and being an elite professional are 2 different things. Definitely a cool experience to be around these really great golfers and just watch them do their thing.
And then got you ready for the LET. I can't believe we're almost an hour into this podcast and we haven't mentioned the LET yet. We are the LET Golf podcast, so we should probably move on to that, I think, Leo. So yeah, I mean, you touched on it earlier. Q School. Firstly, what are your memories from that, and how much of a challenge is it, and just what are your memories from the 2 weeks, and then moving on, just what was it like as a rookie on the LET, and how was your first year on tour?
Q School sucks. Like having to play Q School is awful. There's no sugar-coated version about it. I hate it. Like when you're there, you never want to go back. Like you just have to do this now, because like you just don't ever want to be in that position again, to having to play this again, because it's like all comes down to 1 week. Like luckily I was exempt to the final stage already, because I stayed amateur all the way until Q school. So I had that top ranking in the world, and then just immediately like top, I think top 20 or something, or top 25 qualified immediately like for final stage. So that at least saved me the trouble of having like a really long 2 weeks where you have to play so many rounds of golf. But yeah, then it just throw everything you got in there. And at that time, I didn't compete in a while because I wasn't eligible anymore in that fall. Previously for college golf, so I haven't competed since the summer. And then suddenly it's like, all right, all or nothing, good luck. Luckily, I had a cool friend of mine on the bag who kind of kept me in the moment, and it really helped to apply the questionable golf I had at the time efficiently. And then there was different categories back then. It was like top 5 and then top 20 and then everyone else. And I was like tied 20th, and I had to be in some playoff, and then I didn't make birdie in that first playoff hole. And so at the end of that Q school, I actually didn't really have a great category. And then so I was kind of like, am I even doing this? Is this even worth it? But essentially, it turned out to not really be a problem because that same year, like only a handful of events happened anyway. And other than Scottish and British, I got into everything with the category that I had. And then early in 2021, which was kind of my rookie year B, because I just put them both together, I started really well into the season in South Africa, finishing second. And they had this category where it's like, all right, inside of the top, I think top 20 of the current season order of merit, something like that, the best ranked get like exempt into pretty much any tournament. So suddenly I had this struggle of being into too many events from playing almost nothing like a year and a half up to then, to like suddenly playing everything. I'm like, oh damn, like now I had to balance like how much energy do I invest into every tournament to still have something in my tank. And I failed miserably. Like halfway through that season, was completely burned out, had nothing left. But you have to go through that experience to like really make sure you know how much you can and cannot do. I think that was probably, like, from a professional golf standpoint, the biggest learning experience I had to go through, because more often than not, less is more. All these tournaments we have, they're so top heavy, like in money and points, that it doesn't really, like, finishing 50th doesn't do anything. Like, sure, okay, you played the weekend, it's maybe good for your confidence, whatever, but you want to have these top 10, top 5s, because that's where the points are at. And now there's two different approaches. A lot of people are like, oh, the more I play, the more opportunities I have to catch a really good week to finish top 5. And that was kind of my thinking going in, like, through that year too. But it actually turns out the more I play, the worse my chance is, because I get tired and then my golf kind of falls apart a little bit, and I need to really focus on the individual week, and I can't just accidentally peak perform. I wish I could. It would be nice, but that's not how it works for me, at least. And so I really had to emphasize rest and recovery and season planning and traveling, and how much preparation do you need and how do you structure that, and all these things. And yeah, I mean, I guess it's a good problem to have, though, because I guess I'd rather have too many playing options than being on the other side of things where it's like, oh, I don't get into tournaments, or even worse, you're like, you are on the line and it's like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get into this week. And then it's like you have to wait all the way till closing deadline to then book your trips super short notice. But then you like maybe could have got, like, it could get so messy. It's really hard. And yeah, so I don't want to complain about the problems I have. They're good problems.
And you mentioned there then taking breaks and importance of weeks off. A week like this week where you have opted to sit it out, what do you get up to? And is it a case of more practice or rest? Or talk to us about that balance.
So we had a 36-hole US Open qualifying on Monday. So that was freaking exhausting. So I took off yesterday. I was like, I'm not touching a club. I'm not going to the gym. None of that. But usually I, like, in my weeks that I have, like, practice weeks, I do get a workout in, I get a cardio session in, and then I fill the rest up with golf and social interactions if there's any. Feels good to to be in your own apartment, sleep in your own bed, kind of have this like more peaceful setting around you rather than like hopping from hotel to Airbnb to hotel to a friend's place to whatever. And then just seeing my swing coach is a big one. Actually, when I came back from the Florida event, saw my swing coach for the first time in a long time, and he was like, "What the heck are you doing? Like, you've never done this before." And I mean, this is 15 years. I have never done it. He's like, let's try and restructure this whole thing. And it worked, I guess. But so just kind of having familiar people, have your support system around you, because unfortunately my budget isn't quite high enough to fly them around with me. I wish. Yeah, so it's always good to like kind of go back to your default setting and try to keep yourself grounded or get yourself grounded again.
Yeah, for sure. And is there anything then in particular that you are working on? I know you said about your putting, but what is it you're working on right now?
So much swing, I'm trying to emphasize like my weight shift better. So I struggled like with my driver a lot in the beginning of the season, so I had this feeling that helped my driver, but I just applied it to everything I had in my bag, and then suddenly I would really hit my irons like crap, and I was like, okay, I don't know why. Turns out in my backswing, I shifted my weight to my left, but then I'm trying to shift it further left in my through swing, and that's just a lot of left shifting. That's not really a good thing. So just focusing on these things always helps me, because it's not like I'm not a person who can like think of like an individual like club face thing, whatever. I need to like think in bigger patterns and then like let my subconscious sort it out for me, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure. And then one final one for me then before Nicola picks your brains about F1 and all that good stuff. We're obviously joining you this week on the eve of the Amundi German Masters. You had a great finish last year, coming second. Just talk to us about that week and how much it would mean to have another good week there.
Playing in Germany is always cool. I don't know, for whatever reason, it's always been like even amateur, like international amateur tournaments in Germany, always been my favorite. And that was my first time teeing it up as a professional in Germany last year, so that was super cool. I love the golf course, completely suits my eye. And I was really positively surprised how many people came out and watched, which was incredible because we're quite far outside of Berlin. So I was like, who's even living here? And like a lot of people went through the hassle of getting out there to watch women's golf, which I think is like the greatest thing. So that's just exciting, and being like kind of like a home favorite in a sense, like just having fans on your side, having them be excited or like disappointed for you, like when whatever happens, just makes everything mean more, and it just kind of gives you like, damn, like I'm doing this. Like it's essentially the same thing you do every week, but it just feels like it means more because you kind of just do it for, like you feel like you represent Germany a little bit more at home than you do when you're on the road. Not saying that, like, I mean, I'm always obviously represent Germany, but you guys get what I'm trying to say. So yeah, this year, obviously coming off a rough start to the season, coming back to a golf course that I like is a great opportunity to turn the season around. And I really hope I can capitalize on that. I'm not trying to put too many expectations into this week because that's kind of usually the killer of joy. And it's a gettable golf course. It's scoreable. At least that's how they set it up last year. And obviously, I'm trying to create as many birdie opportunities as possible and really, try to put my best performance forward. But at the end of the day, can't force a score onto the scorecard. We always find that out one way or another, right? But that would just be a very, very cool week to have a good week.
And yeah, no, it was, as you say, so many people came out on Sunday last year in Germany, the crowds that we had in those last few groups. And as we mentioned at the start, there are so many German girls doing well on tour this year. So hopefully we'll have another big crowd again this week at the weekend.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
And last year, you said one of my favorite things, and it was picked up on the commentary.
No, what did I say?
which was when I spoke to you on the Sunday. Obviously, we were waiting for the last few groups to finish, and you went, "It's a good week. I've seen you every day."
Always a good thing when you want to talk to us. Like that's good news, yeah.
But speaking about different people on tour, who are some of your friends on tour, and how do you make friends on tour? Obviously, it's one of those where you've seen people and played with people growing up in the amateur circuit and junior circuit, but then obviously professional circuit, you might have seen people that you haven't seen in a few years. Who are your friends on tour?
I always feel at a lot of events, I feel like I see new faces everywhere, which is a good thing, just having fields mixed up and everything. I would say I don't even know, like my biggest overlap from amateur golf probably plays on the Epson tour by now, because there's just a lot from college that just stay in the United States to play on Epson, which good for them. But yeah, on the LET, I feel like it's a great mix between maybe some more experienced players who just love competing in Europe, and then like the young guns who just come out and are like super fired up. And I think it's a real good like overall atmosphere. So I do feel comfortable around like everyone, honestly. There's literally not a single person. I've been asked this before. It's like, oh, like, is there anyone you don't want to play with? I'm like, no, I don't. Maybe I'm the person that nobody wants to play with. I don't know. I mean, but I really enjoy the overall atmosphere we have, and I feel like I get along with everyone. Obviously, you have like you're closer to some people than others, but I really enjoy that. There's just no bad blood. So Helen Kreutzer is a German. Now she's in her second season. Yeah. We actually didn't cross paths in junior golf at all. We just met in 2020 at some point. I told her one of my random dating stories, and then she's like, "Oh, we're friends." That's kind of not how that happened, but like I guess. And so definitely love spending time with her, playing practice rounds or whatever. And then Chloe Frankish, like from my rookie season on, like 21, we spent a lot of time together, and so she really matters a lot to me. And yeah, then in general, just I don't know, I mean, you're just very friendly with the people that you spend a lot of time with. There's obviously people you like play more with, or like just because of how the tee sheets line up or whatever. So yeah, it's obviously with a favor towards German speaking people too, because it's just nice to be in a different country and be able to speak your own language. So like even like Emma Spitz, who's Austrian. We roomed at the Junior Solheim Cup. We roomed together to make that circle complete. So it's really cool to have her out and I mean do her thing. So that's really cool to see. I think that's as specific of an answer as I can give.
Lots of names there. And as we've mentioned it several times, but yeah, F1. When did you become an F1 fan? Have you always watched the sport?
Not always, but when I was younger, so around like 2011, 12, kind of that area, like Sebastian Vettel was like really good. I don't know if you guys know, but he is really good.
Yeah.
And he is pretty much like from the southwest of Germany, which is where I'm from. Well, like where I live now, it's like very close. And so that was just so cool to obviously Formula One matters a lot in Germany because of, I mean, obvious reasons. So it's just all around you, like you don't really have to put a lot of effort into following it. But I mean, as a young girl, you kind of was like, yeah, sure, go Vettel. Like it's not like I really understood what was going on or the rivalries or whatever. I was just happy kind of watching like the start and the finish of the race. I was like, oh, Vettel won again, yay. That kind of stuff. And then I mean, his era, like when he went to Ferrari, like, yeah, I mean, it kind of cooled off a little bit. Hamilton started being great, but I didn't really understand the ins and outs of things, so I kind of lost interest a little bit. And I also went to the States, which back then it was almost impossible to follow F1 in the States. And like I cared, but not cared. It didn't care to the point of like, okay, I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning to like watch a race and then go to workouts out. Actually, we probably wear it. No, I mean, whatever.
Always done that.
Well, I mean, now I do it too, like when I'm in the States. But yeah, then when I came back from the States back to Germany, I was like, because then in the States, I became like the biggest college basketball fan, but that's almost impossible to follow in Germany because then now that's super late at night and I go to bed super early because I'm an old lady. So I'm like, okay, wait, oh, like Formula One, like what's happening now? So then in 2020, I kind of like dug back into the ins and outs, and now with social media you feel like you really know the drivers. Like you don't, but like you feel like you really know the drivers. And I love when I like talk to someone who's not that into Formula One about like, oh yeah, and Lewis and Daniel and Lando and whatever, and they're like, Leo, you sound like you're like friends with them. I wish someone, please. But yeah, so that's just a really cool sport for me to watch because it's just 20 people, so you really feel like you know them and you can really build like a fan relationship with them rather than like having these sports where there's 100, 1,000, whatever people competing. Anyway, so yeah, no, the 2021 season, Jesus, I think that was just a lot of emotions. So now I'm still trying to recover, honestly. Like, I'm still not over it. I'm really not. But the last year was not that interesting, I guess. I mean, it was like throughout, like the races were interesting and stuff, but it was the championships weren't like as nail biting, and it was a good cooling off period. But I do hope that soon we'll have an interesting championship again, but not as controversial as it was in 21. If that makes any
it
sense.
does. I was at Q school when that happened, so I could not watch it properly.
Oh, no. You don't understand. Let me take you down this memory lane real quick, because I don't know, like, okay, biggest Lewis Hamilton fan sitting right here, and I had a burnout that season. I was really, really tired. I didn't want to play the last 3 events on the LET, which were Saudi, and then Spain. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna play them, and whatever money I make in Saudi, 100% of that is going to go towards a vacation, like just to take my mind off, and if it's no money, then I'm going to tent in the woods. And if it's by, I don't know, $100,000, then I'm going to have like this crazy luxurious trip, whatever. So it ended up being like 5,000 or whatever. That's a decent amount of money for a vacation, right? So I booked this trip to Mauritius. And I'm like, oh, it's going to be amazing. I did think about going to Abu Dhabi to the Grand Prix, but I was like, I'm an introvert, so I'm not going to enjoy the crowd. So I was like, you know what? You can watch the race in Mauritius. This is going to be incredible. Well, guess who falsely tested positive for COVID-19 with her exit test to go to Mauritius? So I didn't go to Mauritius. So I'm sitting in quarantine that entire week leading up to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix Championship. And I'm like, okay, this is perfect. Like, you can see every bit of coverage leading up to this race. So starting Friday morning, I saw everything and the review of everything and every expert's opinion. I watched everything. I was just in front, because what else are you going to do in quarantine? Like, you cannot leave your house. So like, I was just in front of the TV for 3 days straight. And essentially it leads to this race, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, this is going well, this is going well, this is going well. And I was fully prepared to be really happy that this whole year led up to this. And then, I mean, the people who know what happened. And I mean, that just, I really think this, I don't know if there's a getting over that. Like, it was worse than like a heartbreak. I don't know. It was just like your fundamental belief into regulations of sports. Because it was like, essentially, they made a call to make it more entertaining. But like, you cannot just change the rules to make it more entertaining. Like, if someone's leading a major championship by 8 shots, they're not going to be like, oh, by the way, like, you have to play this hole with your 60-degree now to make it more interesting, because people otherwise like, that just made no sense. It was really weird. And I was just, I felt betrayed. I probably wasn't the only one who felt that. And like, just being in this situation, isolated at home, alone, in front of the TV, that was probably the lowest point of my life. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was already depressed going into it, and it was just didn't help. It really didn't. It could have helped. It had the potential to help, but it then just made everything worse.
I thought I had it bad, right? I was in the Netherlands when that race was on, and I was in a bar, and it was just all Dutch Max Verstappen fans everywhere. And then for the whole race, like, they obviously knew Lewis was going to win, so everyone stopped watching, and they were like just like in their groups having beer, whatever, chilling. And then like obviously it all changed, and then suddenly like everyone's up on their feet cheering for Max, and I was like, what is? I'm like the only British guy in there, and I was like, what is happening? And then he wins, and they're like ringing the bell, like beers on the house, and I was like, I don't know what is going on.
I
Right
don't
now.
want
This is
none of those
ridiculous.
beers.
No,
Don't.
no, not at
Yeah.
all. So, but that might be as a F1 fan, that might be worse for you. So.
Yeah, it was just also because my I didn't actually have COVID. Like, but I still, like, it was just a false positive, but like, it was in the system now, so I couldn't, like, they were like checking on me, like actually staying home. Like, just the fact, I felt like the universe was just against me, really. And I dragged Lewis into this. I mean, I'm sorry, bro.
But F1 is not the only sport that you watch. As you've mentioned, you've watched a lot before, but I know you also have friends who are badminton players and from other sports as well, that you they play golf. They come out with you and do different things. So yeah, talk me through your friendship with them, and again, different sports that you can learn off of different people.
So yeah, the badminton players, that's like through a mutual like connection that I got to meet them, which is really incredible. They're super cool athletes, and I don't know how much you know about badminton, but I didn't know a thing before I met them, and now I'm super into it. I mean, they play mostly in Asian countries. Last year was quite wild because we played in Madrid and they played in Madrid the week before, and then like we played in Bangkok and they played in Bangkok the week before, but it just never overlapped enough to like, we could have watched each other compete. But anyway, so I guess their life is relatively similar to us and then yet completely different, and it's just really cool to kind of draw parallels and like see into a different sport from like that outside perspective, but you can like draw from your personal experiences and kind of make comparisons. And especially when it comes to like season planning and travel planning and stuff like that, I think it's a really cool way to look at, okay, what do other people what do other athletes do? That sounds better. And yeah, I mean, specifically there's like this men's double badminton pair that I'm good friends with, and one of them's also a very good golfer. The other one's just getting into it, but we'll get him there. And it's just really cool in general to be able to spend time with them, watch them do their thing, and vice versa, them like following me playing golf. What I really loved about college too, like being a collegiate athlete, is that you do have other athletes around you. Back in college, one of my best friends was a Canadian long jumper. For him, it was actually the wildest thing. This guy's the wildest person. He was like Canadian national champion, like back to back, I think two back, I don't even know. And so he was going to go to the Olympics in Japan in 2020. And that was like his whole thing. And he was going to turn pro right before the Olympics to then, like, once he's qualified, to then have like the best deals and to like, because as a track and field athlete, like you need sponsors, so you don't really get money from just competing. So that was his plan. And he dedicated his whole life to this. And this was like a thing. But then COVID happened. And in Canada, I don't know how you guys know this, but in Canada, everything shut down, like to the point where he wasn't even like, even as like the number one Canadian long jumper, he was not allowed to long jump on track freaking outside. Like, I don't understand what the point of that is, but they do them. So that was obviously awful. But then he picked up roller skate and is now a globally known roller skater. Shout out real quick, if you ever want to see like an artistic roller skater, go Jared. Like, just being able to pick the brains of someone who's that like athletic and skilled and just crazy, but like in a good way, was just a really cool thing.
Never
Love
heard
that.
from long jumping to rollerblading before.
No, I don't really know that transition either, but I mean, it wouldn't be me. Like, with my lack of balance, there's no hope. I can't even ride a bike, like, let alone be on roller skates. But yeah, no, he's doing his thing, and I just love how the universe like threw him this massive curveball, and he was like, I mean, obviously mad about it for a little bit, but then just went like, you know what? I'm just gonna do something completely different and excel at it, because the sky's the limit, I guess. For some people, I don't actually, these people that are good at everything kind of annoy me, because I'm like only good at golf. Like, when it comes to like athletics, like I run almost every day and the only thing I do is get slower. So these people that are just athletes and whatever they pick up, they're going to be great at, bit annoying.
Yeah, I mean, come on, you were what, a biochemist turned golfer, or vice versa. So that's pretty impressive too.
But it's not like, you don't have to be athletic to be a biochemist. You have to try and be smart
True,
or like
but I think
critically
that's
think.
obviously a lot harder.
I don't
Anyone can go
I don't
out
know what that
running.
is.
And then the final questions is just about your goals. So what goals do you have, not necessarily for this season, but for the future?
So my biggest career goal is to be an Olympian. It just, I don't know, I just think the Olympics are like a celebration of like competitive sports, and just being part of that event, just one of my life dreams. I know that in golf, like, it's not as like much regarded as major championships, but like for me it matters. Like, it really matters. Obviously, the fact that it's just once every 4 years, like, it makes it all the harder to be part of that. So that's definitely a big one for me. Threw myself some curveballs for 24. I was on a good track last year, and then I was like, nah, you know what? Who wants to go to Paris anyway? That's kind of no, just kidding. Who knows? But I'll definitely try my best to turn that back around for me, but we'll see. I mean, in general, in golf, I really just want to try and see how far I can take it. Like, because that's the interesting thing about golf. Like, you want to, like, you're just trying to get better. Like, you're really competing against yourself, or like as a golfer, like against the golf course, but like as yourself, like how you're competing. And I would really like to see how much potential there's in me. Yeah, in life, I mostly chase fulfillment, if that makes sense. Like, so right now, this journey on the golf course does fulfill me. And once I feel like it doesn't anymore, for whatever reason, one way or another, I would very much like to go out and look for something else that gives me that, if that would be the case. But we'll see. Time will tell.
Time will tell, absolutely. I think that's a good end note to leave it on, Leo. It's been, God, can you imagine we've done 90 minutes of chatting on here? This is a
I
record.
think
You've done
I
it.
think we did longer.
This you have beaten the record now.
Setting the standard. But yeah, that was a lovely note to end on. And yeah, we wish you luck this week in Germany, and we wish you luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
No worries. So yeah, thanks for joining us, guys, on this episode of the LET Golf Podcast. You know the drill. Give us a follow on socials at LET Golf, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
It's a competition clinching shot. Whoa! How about that?
The LET Golf Podcast, the official podcast of the Ladies European Tour.